Love that. That's kids.
Sure.
Get out there every now and again.
Good gracious, we got some paper.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Winterville Town Council meeting to order for December the 12th, 2022. Invocation will be given by Councilwoman Robertson, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's stand, please.
Our Heavenly Father, we give thanks. We give thanks for our community. We give thanks for our citizens. We give thanks for all the blessings that Winterville offers to everyone. We ask that you continue these blessings on us as we go through and celebrate this holiday season. Amen.
Amen. All right, we can turn for each the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to the meeting tonight. We have a tremendous crowd out here tonight. Hopefully this will carry over into 2023 because you seem to understand the importance of government if you come and attend the meeting. And thank everybody for watching live streaming tonight that's watching over YouTube. We want to thank y'all for being a part of this meeting tonight. I'm Mayor Ricky Hines, and of course you see all the council members here. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I have any?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the agenda as is.
A second.
Okay, got a motion made by Councilman Moore, second by Councilman Paul Rice to accept the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Recognition of employees. Is Evan going to do that, or are you going to do it?
Hi, Evan.
Okay, Evan, recognition of your employee.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here to introduce, or I should say reintroduce, what is probably a familiar face to some, Mr. Caleb Pate. Caleb served a stint with us for, I don't know, about a couple of years. Earlier on as a parks maintenance worker, and he is now back in the same position. He has gone and got some other experience in some other places that he can certainly put to good use here with the town, so we are happy to have him back. Caleb, would you like to say a few words?
I appreciate the opportunity and grateful for you having me back.
Glad to have you back.
Good to have you.
Thank you, Caleb.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up is the resignation of Mark Smith, which used to be on our council. Now he's has been elected to Pitt County Commissioner's seat. Mark just walked in. I reckon he wants his play his theme music. He's just coming in, but a little weird. Yeah, but everybody get his.
Believe so.
Okay, everybody got the letter that he sent. Okay. Again, Mark, we would just want to thank you for your years of service to this board. We know you're going to go on and do great things over on the commissioner side for us and the town of Winterville, and as well as for Pitt County. So we appreciate your service.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, next up is the appointment of the vacant seat that Mark has left. Okay,
Make a motion that we take letters of interest
okay.
until, let me meet, what date in January?
The 9th.
9th?
All right.
Tuesday before?
Tuesday before or Thursday before the 5th.
Thursday before is even better.
Thursday.
Any discussions?
Yes.
Okay.
We have our rules and procedures, and we adopted them. I know that we didn't have a municipal election last time, but we did have a municipal election, 2 years ago? And so I think that we should follow, I feel that we should follow our procedures that we've already adopted, and feel that, that way I feel that we're not impartial, and we're letting the voters speak.
Any more discussion?
Yes,
Well,
go ahead.
Hold on, Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore.
Yes, I think that we have a policy in place, and, you know, I think that it worked out in the past, and it has been some question on the way that we did it, that the way that we ran it for the last several times. But each time it ran out very well, very positive. And I think that we should continue on. As long as it's not broken, why we should try to fix it. So I believe that we should go with the next highest voter.
Okay. Go back.
But there is a motion on the floor.
Okay. All right. Mr. Moore, do you want to speak again, or?
Yeah, I'd like to speak again, yes, sir. I think the voters voted for Mark Smith, and we need to look at, the other person had an opportunity to get more votes, work a little harder, and open it up for other people who might think like Mr. Smith does. He's been a great member of this board. He's done a very good job. He's now county commissioner, and he speaks well of himself. And we need to get the best possible candidate we can have.
Okay.
I didn't look
Hold-
up that number,
Okay.
the number of votes
Okay.
for that.
I didn't pull that.
All right.
We can.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna just put mine in because I said this here. I understand the policy. The policy is basically is how it was written was, if we have an election, which is the town election, the next highest vote getter will receive the seat that one of our council members is removed from. And I'm looking at it from the standpoint of, this was not our election this time, it was the county election, so technically we didn't have an election this time. Mark ran on his own for the county commissioner seat. So therefore, to me, it was an election from the town. And when we did have the election for the town did go by the procedure in which we followed that procedure. I think we should follow that procedure when there's a town election. And that procedure was followed, and everything went through, and we moved to Paul because Paul was the next highest vote getter. So we followed the steps. But since there wasn't a meeting, there wasn't a town election, then we go to the public. I think I would put it out there to the public because there wasn't a town election. That's my preference. But
is
now
the-
we do have a motion on the floor.
Well, discussion's still open.
Yeah, right, discussion right now.
What is the language for that part? Does it say the last municipal election? Does it say the last election? What, I don't have it with
I
me.
got it here.
The rules of
It's in,
procedure.
yeah,
I have
right.
What does it say
Right.
about, I don't remember the exact
King, do you
word.
have that? Do you have?
You want to pass it?
Got, she's passing it down, Mayor.
Okay. I have it also. You did.
It just says election.
Okay, here it is right here. Rule 20, vacancy on the board. When a vacancy occurred on the board, the seat will be filled by the candidate from the previous election with the highest numbers of votes who is eligible and willing to serve. The person will be appointed by the board. The oath of office will be administered at the next regular board meeting.
And my interpretation of that, when it says previous election, I'm thinking that that would be the previous municipal election. Because otherwise, county elections do not apply to our board, nor our election of legislators, which we just had. So, I feel like in doing this, you're being honest, it's the same thing every time. You know, we're treating people the same always in all instances.
When Wayne Holloman died, we did not follow this procedure. When Mr. Velma Harper died, we did not follow this procedure. When Mr. Worthington died, we did not follow this procedure.
Mr. Cooper?
Yeah.
Mr. Cooper died, that's 4.
Right.
Well, there's 3 of those 4.
Okay, when Mr. Wayne Holloman passed, I was the one that took his unexpired seat. And I had to run for it, but the seat it didn't ever get filled during the time when he passed. They waited until the election before they filled his seat.
So we did not follow this policy.
We didn't have this policy in place at the time.
This policy came in place, it was after Velma, I think.
Yes,
It was after
2008, I
Velma
believe.
died.
yes.
It didn't policy.
Yes, this policy
And
here was
even
not
with
in place
that-
at that time.
All right, one at a time, please.
So, in my heart and my spirit, it'd be the right thing to do. And the term, if the person who is being elected to this seat only have to serve, what, 8 months, 9 months, 10 months or something, and then the seat is vacant again during the next election. Is that right?
Yes, but that's when we, as the town, will have members be running. So
Right.
then you go back to a town election.
You go back to a town election,
Right.
right? So that's the reason why I say that we should go and stick to the next highest voter. That would be the right thing to do. Let that person that worked in the last, when everyone's out there working hard, spending their time, some of their funds for the signs and plus they got some votes. The ones that was on the ballot, they received some votes, even though they didn't receive enough at that time to win, but yet and still, they had some ones that had an interest in them of serving. So they have put some energy into in the active mode to say that they want to serve. And that's the reason why I say that we should stick to this policy if we could, and I would like to, but I know we do have a motion on the floor.
We got a motion on the floor.
And we'll settle this
All
motion,
right,
we'll go
we're
from
gonna-
there.
Before we settle the motion, I have the numbers from the last election. And it was Johnny Moore, 649, Mark Smith, 459, Paul Rice, 364, Chantel Hawkins, 340, Brandy Daniels, 192, and write-in, 3 votes. So those are your numbers.
People did work.
So that's your numbers. So now I'm calling for the question. Okay? All in favor, restate the motion.
I made a motion.
I know, you made the motion.
I made a motion that we put up,
Right.
we advertise, and take in those who are interested, letters of interest.
Right.
And that Thursday, before we meet on Tuesday,
Okay.
is the deadline.
All right, and it was second by Paul? There we go. Okay, all right. All in favor, vote by raising their right hand.
You don't get to vote, Mayor. Mr. Mayor, you do not get to vote
Not
this
yet.
time.
Not
Not yet.
Oh, my God.
All opposed, raise their right hand. Okay. Now, I reckon it's my vote. I vote in favor of soliciting the public.
Mayor, members of the council, I just want to verify the due date.
The
Mr.
Thursday before the meeting on Monday,
So that's the
January-
5th.
January the 5th.
January 5th.
Okay.
Okay. Not. Okay, next up is appointment of the mayor pro tem.
Make a motion, we appoint Johnny Moy.
I second.
Could I jump in here?
Yes, sir.
The way our policy manual reads is that we do this by nomination and vote, which essentially works out to the same thing, but it's a little different than motion. You call for nominations, and then see how many nominations you
And no
get.
seconds required.
No
in that.
seconds
No seconds
required.
required.
Nominate Johnny Moy.
And then any other nominations?
Yes, any other nomination, if not said so, I can close their nomination at this time, and
Vote.
we can vote, or you can make an acclamation that,
No other interest.
well, you could.
I would just take a vote. Just take
Okay,
that.
take a vote, okay. All right, all in favor of Johnny Moore as mayor pro tem, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Welcome as mayor pro tem, Johnny.
Oh, thank you so much.
How many years you been serving?
I've been serving 16 years, and finally, thank you so much for allowing me to have the opportunity to serve as the mayor pro.
I served 10 years ago. It's time that other people. Yes, sir.
All right. Again, thank you.
All right. Okay, next up is our presentation for our audit. Ms. Manning?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Tonight we have Mr. James Overton here to present the 2021-22 fiscal year audit. He's from the CPA firm Carr, Riggs and Ingram out of Goldsboro. We contract the firm out each year to audit our funds to make sure they are accounted for correctly and to ensure that we have the proper controls in place. The North Carolina General Statute 159-34 requires each unit of local government to have its accounts audited each year. So I'll let Mr. Overton take over from here.
Thank you, Jessica. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Again, my name is James Overton with Carr, Riggs and Ingram. Mr. Jordan apologizes. He was not able to be here tonight as he had another commitment. So I will do the best as I can to explain this audit to you. Each of you have my business card in case you have any questions. First off, I would like to thank Anthony and Jessica and the rest of the staff for all their help with the audit. Y'all do have an excellent staff, and they did provide us all the information we needed in a timely manner, and we certainly do appreciate that, and we enjoy working with your staff. Okay, if you each have a copy of the audit report, if you would turn to page 13, please. Page 13 is our opinion on the audit, and if you look in the second paragraph, it says that these financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects. In other words, there are no material errors in here. This is the highest and best opinion that you can get, and of course, that's the opinion y'all get every year because y'all do have good financial records. Okay, if you will flip over to page 23. Okay, 23, this is just a little summary of your income statement on the full accrual basis or the audit basis. The first column, two columns there are governmental activities. That is mostly your general fund and your new fund, which is the American Rescue Plan Fund. If you look at the bottom of the page, you had a net increase or net income of $2.4 million in your general fund or your governmental funds compared to $1.9 million in the prior year. If you look, this next two columns, business activities, that is your enterprise fund. That would be your electric, water, sewer, and stormwater funds combined. You see, this year they had a net income of $215,000. That compares to $1.8 million last year. It's down significantly, but I will get to a little bit later the reason for that. But you still had a net income, so it was still positive, it just not as much as the prior year. Okay, flip over to page 27, please. At the bottom of page 27 is a summary of the town's outstanding debt. The first line is most all of your installment loans with the various banks and state agencies that you borrowed from. And you see your notes or notes payable in governmental activities, 2.7 million. That's down from 3.5 million last year. So you've paid those notes down. Business activities, it's up a little bit because we're borrowing money on a capital project right now. It went up from 5.2 to 5.6. The big change you see there is in your net pension liability. This is your share of the state's pension liability, which is not really your liability, it's the state's. They just divide it up and put it on their books so it doesn't show up on theirs. But it went way down. The reason for that is each town and each county has had to contribute a higher percentage of salary over the last 2 or 3 years, and it's going up again this coming year. So you've put more money into it. The second thing, they changed the interest rate, and the interest rate has a drastic effect on whatever this liability is. And so that's the reason that that went down significantly. OPEB liability, this is your liability for retiree health insurance. Some of your employees are eligible once they retire to receive health insurance for the remainder of their life. And again, that changes every year based on inflation, based on interest rate, based on the cost of medical insurance, and that's just the estimate of your future retiree cost. Okay? All right. If you'll flip over to page 34 on Exhibit 3. Okay? This is the balance sheet for your governmental funds on your modified accrual or budget basis. You look at the bottom of the page, you'll see unassigned fund balance in the general fund, $10,797,000. If you look at this graph, that 10.7 million compared to 9.3 million this year. Your general fund balance went up. There are several reasons for that. The first, your sales tax revenue this year increased by $625,000. That's largely due to the stimulus payments that everybody got last year. Well, everybody went out and spent those, and so your sales tax went up. Hopefully it will continue next year, but I would not expect that big an increase next year. Hopefully it will at least stay the same. Your grant revenue in the general fund decreased. The reason for that is you have a SAFER grant that pays for 13 new firemen you hired a couple of years ago. Each year, this federal government pays a little bit less. Starts out at 75%, then drops to 50, and then drops to, 25 this year? Is that right, Anthony? And this is the last year. Next year, you have to pay 100% of those firemen and rescue workers' salaries. The other revenue that increased significantly was your recreation revenues. For the last 2 years, a lot of your recreational activities were canceled because of COVID, and your rec revenues dropped off dramatically. This year, things returned to normal, and your recreation revenues went back up to normal by about $160,000. Let's see. So that's the reason for your increase there. If you look over on page 36, Exhibit 4. Okay. Before I get there, this is a graph that shows your total fund balance. That first graph was unassigned fund balance. That is the fund balance that you can spend however you choose. There are no restrictions on it. The total fund balance of $13 million includes restricted funds. These are funds that you either cannot spend or have to spend for a particular purpose. And that's $13 million compared to $11 million last year, an increase of almost $2 million, or $1.9 million. Okay? Look here. Your revenues on Exhibit 4, your revenues this year were $10,400,000 compared to $9.8 million last year, and we just went over the reason for some of those increases. You see your revenues have steadily increased as the town has grown over the last several years. Okay? Your budget versus actual revenues. Your budget was 10.7, your actual revenues were 10.4. Okay? Your expenses. Your budgeted expenses were $13.7 million. Your actual expenses were only $9 million. And again, for the last several years, the town's actual expenses have been well under budget. And that is shown on Exhibit 5 on page 38. You see the budget versus actual schedule there. Okay. All right. Exhibit 6 on page 39. This is a schedule of the balance sheet for all of your enterprise funds, electrics, water, sewer, and stormwater. You look at the bottom of the page, the unrestricted fund balance in each of those. In the water fund, it's $1.9 million. In the electric fund, it's $7.7. You see the water fund's not that much different from last year. It's about the same, a little bit more. The electric fund is down significantly from last year. You still had a profit, but not nearly as much. The reason for that is you had a drastic increase in the cost of your electricity due to the increase in the price of natural gas, which your supplier uses to create electricity. It went up by about $1.3 million. And consequently, your net income in the electric fund went down $1.3 million. Everything else was about the same. Okay? The sewer fund right here actually shows a loss or a deficit this year of $467,000. That is temporary. The cause of that, your electric fund actually made $300,000 this year, which was about the same as the sewer fund, about the same as last year. But the town spent about $2 million on two major capital projects for sewer line rehabilitation. And you have a loan approved at DEQ to pay for that, but at June 30th, we had not drawn down those loan proceeds. So we show the expenditures, but we don't have the loan proceeds yet to reimburse it. The town did receive those in the new fiscal year, so that deficit should reverse itself next year. The stormwater fund had a unrestricted fund balance of $1.1 million, which is about $200,000 higher than last year. Okay. If you look at Exhibit 7 on page 40, and you will see this is your income statement for the various funds. And you see in the electric fund, you had a loss of $333,000. That again is attributable to the increase in your electric costs due to the increase in natural gas prices. The water fund had a net income of $38,000. That's pretty much the same as it was last year. The sewer fund had an income of $314,000, but it's got that $2,000 loan proceeds that they haven't received yet that caused the deficit on your balance sheet. Stormwater fund increased by $196,000. Last year that was $300,000, but that's because last year you received a $170,000 grant in the stormwater fund that you did not receive this year. Everything else in the stormwater fund is pretty much the same as last year. Okay, you flip over to page 98. '98 gives you the detail of your, that's your general fund detail. So you can just look through that at your leisure, and you see your various revenues and expenses in the general fund. This is a graph of your unrestricted cash. This is the cash that you have available that is not restricted. In the governmental funds, you have 12,000 compared to 10,600,000 last year. In the water proprietary funds, you have 8.5 million compared to 10 million. Again, the reason that is down is you spent $2 million on those two big capital project funds that you will be reimbursed for this coming year. Okay? This is a graph of your power bill funds. At the end of the year, you had $488,000 in power bill money available to spend on street projects for next year. Your power bill revenue for this year was $310,000. That's a little more than last year. That is due to the growth of the town. You've added more streets, you added more people, and power bill money is distributed based on population and miles of streets. So as the town grows, you get a little more each year. Okay. This is a graph of your fund balance in the general fund. The big tan shaded area, let me see. Can't see that little print over there. That is your, the big, large area, that is your unassigned fund balance of $10,700,000. All of the other little triangles there are your restricted money, money that is restricted for a particular purpose, such as power bill. You have money committed to the housing. You have $75,000 set aside for future retiree health insurance benefits. You have a note receivable from the town of Grifton of $14,000. That is where you sold them a jetback 3 years ago. They're paying on it over 4 years. You've got one more payment left, and that should be paid off this year. And then one block there, fund balance assigned for next year. You've appropriated $500,000 to balance next year's budget. And you do that each year, but each year your revenues exceed budget and your expenditures are less than budget, so you rarely, if ever, have to use that fund balance. Okay? All right. Just a couple more. This is a graph of your general fund revenues. The large blue area there is your largest revenue, which is property taxes, 4.6 million. The next largest area is your sales tax, franchise tax, and other state revenues of 3.6 million. And then you have about 787,000 in grant revenues this year. One thing that has been pretty pathetic for the last couple of years is investment income. Interest rates have been way down the last few years. Starting about April 1st, they started to go up. So this coming year, you should see a significant increase in your investment income for fiscal year 2023. And this is a graph of your general fund expenditures. Of course, your largest expenditure by far is public safety, police, fire, EMS. The next largest is general government, and then you see the various others, parks and rec, debt service, and the area shaded in red is your debt service and sanitation. Okay, it's almost. Let's see. Just a couple. You turn to page 112. Okay. On page 112, this is your 2019 sewer rehab project, and you see that this year you spent almost $1.2 million on this project. You spent $1.7 million to date on this project over the last several years. You look on the next page, 113, this is your new sewer rehab project. This project is really just getting started. So far, all you've spent is engineering cost. The construction cost will come this coming year. We spent $285,000 on this project. Those are the reasons that your sewer fund is in a deficit, and again, that will be reimbursed. In order to pay for this, they actually borrowed money from the electric fund, and they will pay that back because we can't show a negative cash. The last two things I have, if you look on page 122, this is a schedule of your property taxes receivable, and out of a levy of $4.6 million at the end of the year for the current year, your receivable was only $23,000. Your receivable for the last 10 years is, minus your allowance, is a total of $46,000. Your staff does an outstanding job of collecting taxes, and if you look over on the next page, page 123, you see at the bottom of that page your tax collection percentage is 99.49%.
Wow.
You can't do much better than that. So, so your tax collecting staff should be commended because they do an excellent job. One thing I want to point out, your total property value is $979 million. That compares to $949 million last year. So due to growth and new houses, you had an increase of $30 million in your property value this year. So this is a nice little town to live in, and I think a lot of people are finding that out and moving here. The last thing that I have, beginning on page 148 through 159, that is your compliance section. I'm not going to go over that. That is a section of how you complied with federal and state grant regulations. Read through that at your leisure. If you have any questions, please feel free to call me. Each of you has my business card. And on page 158 is a schedule of your grant expenditures this year. The town expended $3 million in federal grants. Most of that was those two big sewer projects, and then also the payment for your fire and EMS salaries. Your state expenditure was Powell bill, $34,000. The town did not spend a lot of Powell bill money this year. You spent a lot last year. That was down. And that is really all I have. Again, I'd like to thank the staff for all their help. Does anybody have any questions?
How do we compare statewide?
Sir?
How do we compare with other municipalities?
Well, let me go back to this first slide here. If you look there, your general fund balance, unassigned, is 118%. What that means is that you have a little bit more than a year's worth of expenditures in savings, probably about a year and 2 months, okay? So you can pay your bills for 14 months. That compares outstanding to many other towns this size. The smaller the town, the higher that needs to be. A lot of towns are probably in 70 and 80. It's usually only the very small towns that are over 100% because they don't have a lot of expenditures, and so a little bit of savings equals that. So you're in outstanding shape. That's your unassigned fund balance. Your total fund balance is 147%. That's almost a year and a half's worth of expenditures. So you are doing outstanding there also because you have enough money to cover your bills for almost a year and a half. Now, there's one calculation that the local government commission makes. It's called fund balance available. That number for you is 134,000. 134% compared to 130% last year. So it went up a little bit. Your fund balance went up. Your town is in outstanding financial shape. The one negative is the loss in the electric fund due to the drastic increase in natural gas prices, which is really beyond your control. And it may result in you looking at your electric rates next year if that continues. But gas prices have come back down in recent months, so hopefully your electric purchases will come down with that. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any more questions? Anybody else have any questions from Mr. Overton? If not, Mr. Overton, we thank you and your group each year for coming in and doing this. We really appreciate it.
Now, all of your audit reports, your annual financial information report, all of those have been submitted to the Local Government Commission and the U.S. Census Bureau on time, and we're just waiting for their approval, which we expect any day now.
Okay, thank you.
And thank your staff again.
All right.
Good night.
Mayor, do we need to make a motion to accept the report?
We do usually
Yes.
ask for
Correct.
approval.
Yes.
Yes. Well, at this time, I'd like to accept the report that the auditor have given us tonight.
Have a motion on the floor, I'm sorry, in a second. All right. Have a motion on the floor by Councilman Moy, second by Councilman Rice. In the discussion, all in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jessica?
We also just want to say thank you to the auditors for their presentation tonight and for all of their hard work throughout the whole audit process. Also like to thank finance staff as well as all town staff and all their hard work in getting the audit completed.
Thank you, Jessica, and like you said, you and your staff, and also Anthony and Terry for all your hard work. Next up, we have is a subdivision fee, the Wooten Company and staff. This is going to be kind of a lengthy process, so.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Tonight, we have another presentation on the schedule here. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the establishment of system development fees for water and sewer infrastructure. The town on September 12th of this year engaged with the Wooten Company to calculate on behalf of the town the estimated recommended allowable fee. And so tonight we're going to have Mr. Gary Hartong and Genevieve Versteg with the Wooten Company present, and they're going to talk about the findings and the process and everything that goes into this calculation. It's a big task. It's not something that just happens overnight, and they work diligently on it and asked me a million questions, and I tried to get them answers. So they did a thorough job, and tonight they're going to be recommending what they found in their study, and then the town will have to make some decisions based on that.
Give me good evening. If you give me 10 seconds to get acclimated.
All right.
Thanks. If we can scroll down. All right, I think we're in good shape. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Pleasure to be in front of you again. Again, my name is Gary Hartong with the Wooten Company. With me tonight is Genevieve Versteeg to my right, and also in the audience, many of you, I'm sure, recognize Will Larson, lead of our Greenville office. And what I want to do, Anthony gave a great intro. We want to walk you through the process of system development fees. This could be it's a long process. We're going to do our best to summarize it and move through it swiftly. I know you have other things on the agenda, but we certainly don't want to move through it too quickly so you don't understand what the process is and ultimately what we're recommending. So as we move through, and Anthony, you may have to, let's see if I can't do this. We got two per, all right. All right. So we're just going to continue to slide through here. Quick overview of the presentation. First, we need to understand what system development fees are, and secondly, and equally as important, what system development fees are not. There's very prescribed methodology in how these are calculated, and there's a lot of terminology that you'll hear in the industry about different types of fees as they relate to water and sewer. So we want to be very clear about what a system development fee is. There's three methodologies for calculating these types of fees. We're going to talk about those, and we're going to talk about the methodology that we used for the town of Winterville. How are the fees calculated? Again, very specific instructions on how the fee is calculated per line item, per asset that the town owns or plans to construct. We'll talk about the projected revenues based on the maximum allowable fee. And we'll talk a little bit more about maximum allowable versus what the town is able to implement. But in a nutshell, the town can implement anything less than the maximum allowable fee. You just cannot exceed it. So we'll talk about what those revenues look like at the maximum level, and then anything that you would adopt less would be a pro rata percentage reduction in the revenues. And then lastly, if there's any questions or comments, we can certainly talk about those. All right, this is going to work well. All right, so quick overview of the system development fees. What they allow are local governments to charge developers for improvements or for connection to major arterial system-wide water and sewer utilities. All right, that's a lot of verbiage. So another way of saying that is your main transmission lines for water, your large sewer outfalls, things that require treatment for distribution to all customers. Your major components, not the smaller lines, not pump stations or assets that only serve a particular neighborhood, but we were talking about assets that are available to all developers that when they connect to the system, their customers or the town's eventual customers will benefit from. So those can cover really two types of assets. Assets that are existing, that you already have in the ground, that have excess capacity or have available capacity to serve new development. It can also cover new assets or assets, water and sewer assets, lines, pumps, generators, things of that nature that are required to serve new development either within town or on the outskirts of town within the ETJ. I mentioned that there's three ways of doing that. Again, that is prescribed in the AWWA manual, which is what we use to calculate those fees. So what are not SDFs? You've heard the term impact fees. Impact fees are no longer legal in North Carolina, at least for water and sewer. So they are not impact fees. They are not capacity fees. CMSD charges its customers a capacity fee. That's not to be confused with that. They are not availability fees. They're not tap fees. The town charges a tap fee for a new customer when they're adding a water meter or when they're adding a new sewer tap. They're not to be confused with those. They're not contractual charges, or nor are they user charges. So again, very specific in nature, apply to new connections only. And I want to make that very clear, not only for the council, but for the members of the audience. These fees are not for existing customers. They're only for new development within the town. And so, again, they recover, really they're intended to recover the costs to the town of providing that same level of service to new customers. They have to be, they can't just be arbitrary. They must be direct. They have a specific purpose. They are planned improvements. They're not just something that's scribbled on the back of a napkin. So that improvement is either included in some type of long-term plan, a capital improvements plan, a plan that is presented to the town by a developer. So there has to be a direct relation to that asset. And then again, they need to cover a 5 to 10 year analysis, at which time they can be updated. It's difficult to project much further beyond that, especially in fast-growing communities. A little bit about the background. How did we get here today? Well, it actually started with a lawsuit by Quality Built Homes versus the town of Carthage about 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago now. And what the lawsuit was about, the impact fees that the town of Carthage was charging the developer were not based on a specific calculation. They were not based on a specific set of criteria. There was no standard methodology for coming up with the fee that the town was assessing the developer. So after that lawsuit, there was a lot of negotiation, we'll say, between the NC Home Builders Association and the North Carolina League of Municipalities. Ultimately, they decided that the methodology that we're talking about tonight, the AWWA methodology, was appropriate. And then the North Carolina General Assembly passed House Bill 436 in 2017, requiring those communities that charged a system development fee to be in conformance or be in compliance by July of 2018. So there's a number of documentation needs that are required, as I mentioned, to complete this. We just don't come up with numbers out of thin air. Anthony and your staff has been very gracious with providing us with this requested information. You can see there the information can be complex. It can be very straightforward. Sometimes it's both. Sometimes we have to ask a lot of questions and interpret the information. But the two things that I would point out that were very helpful for our particular analysis for Winterville were the future development plans and the capital improvements plan. The town has did a lot of that legwork previously. They were able to provide us that information from which we were able to draw our conclusions. The three methodologies. Excuse me. Go a little bit further so y'all can see it on the screen. The buy-in or equity cost method. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds with the methodology. That's our responsibility to use what is appropriate, but I think it's helpful for you to at least recognize the cost methods. Again, buy-in or the equity cost method is based on a replacement value of an existing asset. So on the right hand, in that right-hand column, you'll see a list of different types of assets that this methodology applies to. I think the key word that you see up there is previous. Another way to say that is existing. This methodology is really meant for existing assets that have remaining capacity available for new development. So again, we did an inventory of your assets. We identified those that were eligible for inclusion in the study, those that had remaining capacity, and this is a methodology that we used to assess that part of the fee. So the cost burden here is really shared between your existing customers, because technically they paid for it at some point, or they are paying for it now, whether that be through debt service or whether that be through your existing water and sewer user charges, to put this asset in place. So the new development is picking up a portion of the asset that's available, and they're paying their share. That's why it's called the equity method.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Quickly. So an example, I'm looking at what you got in here. An example was what you were saying, the water line on Four Lines Road, where you have us, Bell Arthur, and GUC. Is that sort of?
That particular asset, I'm trying to remember the diameter of that line.
It's an 8-inch.
So an 8-inch typically on a water line, yes, we will include an 8-inch water line, but for the part of that that serves Winterville, only the portion of the capacity that serves Winterville would be eligible within this study. Fair assumption, Genevieve? Talk a little bit about the incremental cost method. Now this method is a little bit different in that we are looking at planned assets identified in your capital improvements plans, identified in other development documents, and that is looking at the estimated value of the new asset. So we will look at bid tabs, or we will project costs using engineering analysis to come up with an estimated cost for that asset. Your new customers, when they come on, because it's a new asset and your existing customers are not using it, in this approach, the new development pays for the entirety of this asset addition. So this covers the new items that are required to serve them, that are required to provide the same level of service that your existing customers receive. That is the main difference between the two. Again, this methodology is appropriate for faster growing communities in which you are building a lot of transmission, a lot of major arterial assets to provide service to them at the same level as your existing customers. The last method, as you may have already surmised, the combined cost method. This is what we used for Winterville. We looked at your existing assets, said, okay, we've got these assets that are eligible. They have this much remaining capacity. That is eligible for the buy-in piece of it. We said, all right, these are the planned assets on the incremental side. We've got planned assets of X million dollars. We don't, we don't recommend that your existing customers pick those up. That should be paid for by new development because you are extending those assets to serve them. That falls under the incremental piece. You combine those two, and you have the combined cost method. I'm going to let Genevieve talk to you about the buy-in method and how we calculated these. She did the meat of the report. She knows if you have specific questions, she's a better source of information than I. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Genevieve to talk about the specifics of some of your assets.
Thank you. So we'll begin with the buy-in method, which is what we use to analyze the infrastructure that is already existing in the Winterville system. The first thing we need to do was determine the total net cost, which is the cost of the infrastructure after it has been depreciated. The depreciation was provided to us via the fixed asset schedule. For infrastructure that was not listed on that schedule, namely old capital improvements, from old capital improvements plans, we applied a straight line method to determine depreciation. Once the total net cost for each asset was determined, we then divided the total net cost by the capacity of that infrastructure. So if you say have a 130 gallon per minute pump station, you just divide the total net cost for that pump station by the 130 gallons per minute, and that will give you the cost per gallon for that infrastructure, and you just go down the list of the infrastructure. You also have to determine project eligibility, and as Gary was pointing out, we're only focusing on major infrastructure. We're not focusing on 6-inch water lines or pump stations that only serve a small subdivision. We're looking at major arterial infrastructure. We're also looking at how much capacity is left in that asset for future customers to use. That is also impacts the project's eligibility to be recouped through SDFs. Based on our analysis, the SDF eligible assets that you have within your system right now are 8-inch and 10-inch water mains. The major improvements made to your elevated storage tank are also SDF eligible. 10-inch and 15-inch gravity sewer lines, as well as the 3 major pump stations in your system are also SDF eligible. You can see the numbers up there. The total net cost for the SDF eligible water assets was about $1.9 million. Resulting in a system development fee determined by the buy-in method for water assets of 70 cents per gallon. And for the wastewater assets, the sewer system development fee was about $5.36 per gallon. Moving on to the incremental method, this is what we use to analyze the future projects, on your capital improvements plan. A 5-year analysis period was chosen for this SDF, so we only looked at capital improvements projects that were going to occur within the next 5 years. A similar situation to the buy-in method, we had to determine the net total cost of the project and then divide that by the capacity of the asset. In order to determine net total cost for the project, we had to take out any funding. Say you went to the state and they gave you money in a grant. That money cannot be recouped through SDFs because it came from somewhere else. This is only for the money supplied by the town. Similarly, project eligibility, we're looking for projects that would serve future customers or major, and these are, of course, major arterial, major transmission lines that will serve the majority of the town of Winterville. Based on our analysis of the 18 water projects that were listed on the capital improvements plan, only 8 were eligible with a net total cost of $10.1 million over the next 5 years. Only 4 of the 7 wastewater projects were considered eligible with a net total cost of $7.3 million over the next 5 years, and that results in water SDF of $3.31 and sewer SDF of $2.66. And I realize I just went over that pretty quickly, so I just wanted to break this down a little bit with an example. One of the projects was the expansion of the Chatham Street lift station, or the pump station. That is going to be expanded from 935 gallons per minute to 1,300 gallons per minute. And based on the CIP, it's going to cost a total of $1.75 million to do that. There is no grant funding for this, so there was nothing to take away from this total cost. Based on the expansion amount from 935 to 1,300 gallons per minute, we estimated about 28% of the capacity of that expanded station will go towards future customers, therefore is 28% eligible for SDFs. And then, of course, the future capacity was 1,300 gallons per minute, and that converts to about 1.872 gallons per day. So you divide by that, and you get 2 cents per gallon. So that's an example of just one project. We just did that for every project. So next steps. So we got the water SDFs and the sewer SDFs calculated by both our buy-in and incremental method. We sum those together. We get the cost per gallon for water and sewer SDFs. I'm going to move to the next screen. So what we've estimated are these two numbers here, about $4 per gallon for water and $8 per gallon for sewer. These are the maximum allowable calculated FCFs, and by that we mean this is the maximum we can support with our data. It's normal to set numbers lower than this, and I believe the typical residential meter size for Winterville is about 3/4 of an inch, so I've included that number up there. The base meter size that we calculate our numbers at is 5/8, but the equivalent ratio for that is 1.5, so 1.5 times $4 is $6. And this is the same numbers again, except this is the cost per connection. So say you have and this is assuming 360 gallons per day per a 5/8 inch connection. So if you have a house come in that connects to your sewer system, then they would pay like $2,887 if you were to go with the maximum allowable SDF sewer charges. All right, now that we have these numbers, I want to talk a little bit about the revenue forecasting you could expect if you were to set them at this maximum SDF. But first, we got to figure out what your growth is going to be like over the next 5 years. Typically, what we do is we usually set it as proportional to the population growth that you will experience. But Winterville is in a unique situation in that they're surrounded by other water and sewer providers, Bell Arthur, Greenville Utilities especially. So you could have a house
or a subdivision, excuse me, a subdivision that will be located in one area, and they may connect to the Winterville water system, but they could connect to the Greenville utilities in terms of the sewer system. In that case, they would only have to pay for water revenue. So that, we needed to account for that in our revenue projections. So thankfully, the extensive list of proposed developments over the next 5 years provided us a way to gauge how many new water and sewer customers you were going to get over the next 5 years, and based on that, we were able to determine an annual sewer growth rate for the next 5 years for residential, commercial, and institutional connection types. And this was important because the way we estimate future revenue is we take the number of new residential, new commercial, new institutional connections and multiply that by the cost per meter, which you saw about 3 slides ago. And using the maximum SDF you could go, this is what your breakdown would turn into. You get about $2 million in revenue from water system and development fees and about $4.7 million in sewer system and development fees. And that's over a 5-year period. Apologies, that is not per year. That is at the end of 5 years. Just wanted to point that out. Sorry for disappointing you. Excuse me. So in conclusion, we recommend implementing these SDFs using the combined cost methodology because this allows you to recoup expenses from existing infrastructure as well as future projects. And as I mentioned before, if you use the maximum allowable water and sewer SDFs, you will generate about $2 million at the end of 5 years in water revenue and about $4.7 million in sewer revenue at the end of 5 years. I will now turn it back over to Gary for the remainder of this presentation.
Just a couple more slides and you can hit us with a bunch of questions. I do want to talk about the next steps in this process. Again, the methodology is prescribed for calculating the fees. The methodology is also very specific for implementation of the fees. And the next steps after this study is complete would be for the town to publicly post it, whether it be on the town's website or newsletter or just letting the public know of its existence and that you are soliciting feedback. There is a minimum 45-day public comment period, and I would encourage you not to make it 44. At least 45 days, and a little bit longer if you can. You don't want to get caught up in some of the legalities there. After that 45-day public comment period, there is a required public hearing for the public to ask questions. At the end of the public comment period, at the end of the public hearing, the Wooten Company will take those comments and determine if any revisions need to be made to the report. Sometimes a simple clarification, responding directly to the person asking the question or directly to the inquiry is sufficient. Other times, there may be a revision needed to the report, and we would simply make that revision and let you know, let staff and council know of that particular revision. After that is done, to the satisfaction of the council may then adopt the fees, and they can do that through ordinance or they can do that through a separate fee schedule like you would normally do for your other charges in town. One of the things that I think is helpful, Genevieve gave you some maximum fees, but I think it's helpful to know what your neighbors are doing. What are other communities in North Carolina doing? This really comes into play it's very important for economic development considerations. If you want to slow down growth within town, you can set those fees up at the maximum level. If you want to encourage growth within town, you can not adopt them at all or set them at a very minimum level. But and that is entirely up to you as the council where those should be set. But let me show you here is what your neighbors are doing, or I should say what other North Carolina municipalities are doing. And I apologize, I know you cannot read what that says up there. But what I will point out is on the water side, if you're looking at the left-hand side, a typical residential customer, those two highest bars, the second and the third bar, represent a range of $500 to $2,000. So that is where the majority of North Carolina communities have set the water fee.
That's water only.
That is water only, correct. So the fee that Winterville, or the fee that we calculated for Winterville falls right in that range, $1,444 as the maximum. Again, not a recommendation by any means. Let me tell you what GUC has implemented. They also used the combined approach when they calculated their fee. Theirs is $724. But I will tell you this, they set their fee based on a reduced volume of water. So where ours have been calculated at $360, again, that is per state regulation, they set theirs at their actual customer use, which Winterville can do as well. So they set theirs, again, $724 at 166 gallons of average residential water use. Let's look at Winterville. I said $1,444 at 360. Winterville's average residential use is 124 gallons per day. So if you use that same approach that GUC did, it would reduce that to $497 as your an equivalent way to look at it. Now, there's nothing saying that you have to set it at your average residential use. It's just one approach you can take. So let me talk a little bit about sewer. Very similar graphs you'll see, although a little bit spread out, a little further to the right. The peaks are not as high. So your residential communities, or the residential fees set for other North Carolina communities, really fall, if you look at you look at those, I'll say blocks 2 through 5. Your highest 5 blocks is a range of $500 to $3,000 is where most municipalities and towns are falling. We calculated for Winterville a maximum fee of $2,887. So again, you're in that range. To give you the GUC approach, they set theirs at $881 at 159 gallons of use. So if it was set at the 360 number, it would be higher, and I'm not going to hit you with all those numbers right now. But if Winterville was to take an approach and use your average residential use, again, of 124 gallons per day, the fee would be $994 instead of $2,887. So that's some of the things we can talk a little bit about further, but I want you to know that the maximum fee, the big takeaway here, $2,887 is the maximum fee at the 360 gallons per day use. That concludes the formal part of the presentation. Genevieve and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Anyone have any question?
I do.
Okay.
Gary, is there a specified legal requirement on how we have to advertise for 45 days?
There is not a specific legal requirement. I would highly recommend that whatever you use for other type of public advertisements, you follow the same procedure.
Okay.
At a minimum, I would encourage you to do it in the local newspaper as well as on the town's website.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Anybody else have any questions? We thank you for your presentation tonight.
Thank you.
Anthony.
So with that, as you can tell, it's a very detailed process. There's a lot goes on to it. A lot of it's regulated by North Carolina general statute, and really a decision has to be made about how we want to proceed. And Gary, I may have a question for you. should we ask the council to make a decision tonight, or is it what's published is the max amount, and then we can make a decision at a later date based on the max amount published?
That would be my recommendation.
Okay.
Feedback. Once you have that feedback from the public, then you can decide what if any,
So with that being said, tonight, the only action from the council will be to accept the report, and then next month we'll bring to you, we'll post the advertisement, and then we'll bring back a date for a public hearing, and then we'll move from there.
All right.
Motion to accept the report.
Okay, got a motion to accept the report. Do I have a second? A motion and a second to accept the report tonight. Motion made by Councilman Moore, second by Councilman Rice. Any discussion? Okay, with that being said, all in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Also, too, council, I think be good if we all make sure we read through this.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up is the zoning request for partials 67, 224, 68, 790, and 70655. Brian Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, it's good to see everybody tonight. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. So, as you stated, we do have a rezoning request before you tonight. So that's parcel 67224, 68790, 70655. So the applicant is the Overton Group. That's on behalf of the owner. Located out on the intersection of Old Tar Road and Vernon White Road. It's a total of 13.94 acres. It's currently zoned R15, which is residential, and a proposed zoning district is general business. So just our process, notification of this rezoning request was posted out on site on August 30th. Adjacent property owners were notified by mail October 21st before the planning and zoning meeting. So the notification of the public hearing was published in the Daily Reflector on November 2nd and November 9th. That public hearing was originally scheduled for last month on November 14th. And at the request of the applicant, Town Council voted to table that until tonight's meeting. So here we are. I'm just going to go through some site details. So you can see here's the property outlined in gray here. So you've got old Vernon White Road here, Old Tar here. Just an aerial shot. So you got the property here. It's these three parcels here. We'll talk about this one in a second. So you've got surrounding Preston Trails, Briar Creek, the Jehovah's Witness Church here, Canterbury, and Cedar Ridge to orientate you. This is just an overlay of the actual rezoning map, the boundary map for what we're looking at. So again, it's these three parcels we're looking at. Just a better look at that. So this is a little bit different angle. So you've got the Old Tar here and Vernon White here. So, and then the 1, 2, 3 parcels here. So just some items of note. So this ditch feature here is a blue line stream. So I want to talk about that for just a second. The way the blue line stream or riparian buffer rules are in North Carolina, they were originally adopted in 1997. So anything at the time of that adoption at the state level stays in place. So until a change of use occurs, there is technically no buffer. So this has been agricultural fields. So when you ride out there, you don't really see a buffer out here. Any change in use will kick that buffer into play. So you'll kind of see something that looks like this. So there's a there's the stream channel here. The riparian buffer's got two zones. Zone 1 is the first 30 feet landward. So that's going to be your natural woody vegetation. Then the outward 20 feet, zone 2 is your manicured vegetation. So you can actually have fences and everything, things like that. But so I just want to point that out, that this is going to give an extra buffer between the potential use and current residential on the other side. Current zoning, as you can see, current zoning is R15. See predominantly R15 in Preston Trails. Briar Creek is R10. Then you got some R12.5, R10 with Canterbury, and then R10 conditional district with Cedar Ridge. So existing land use map, you can see all the yellow is single-family residential. The green here represents vacant or agricultural use. So our future land use plan, that hatched area is our property we're looking at. So it does, the land use plan does designate this as a commercial overlay property. So one of the big things we were looking at during the land use plan is the Old Tor Evans Street widening project. So this project is going to dramatically change our town, not only our town, but this property in particular. So you can see Vernon White Road currently is this way right here. So it stops here and T intersections here. This represents a signalized intersection. You can see Vernon White's going to be realigned with Tabard Road. So you're going to have a full signalized intersection at this at the new configuration here, which is going to remove this piece of property. So essentially what you're going to see is the church front yard is going to expand a little bit. This is going to remain DOT right away, so you'll still see some existing utilities located within there, but on the ground, this is going to look like a bigger front yard for the church there. So again, it's just a little bit different angle, so going north and south. So this would be the church property here. So all these hatched areas would be where pavement's getting removed. So you can actually see the road shifting back toward this property. So this is Cedar Ridge over here. So it actually kind of shifts back over here. You're going to have a 8-foot wide multimodal path here. And then you can see the signalized intersection here. You're going to have about 6 lanes of traffic here and here with turn lanes. That's going to limit your access coming in and out of Cedar Ridge. It'll be a right out only there, so they won't be able to come here and go left. So the Cedar Ridge folks would have to either one go out and around into Canterbury, or they're going to have to take a right and go down to Evans and ultimately loop back around with the super street configuration that DOT is going to install. So with that being said, I just kind of want to point out with the buffer, the new street configuration, everything, this kind of puts this property on an island. There is no interconnectivity with the property, the existing subdivision across the stream feature there. With the access coming here being limited to right out, right in only, so there's really, and it pushes it kind of this way, so it's going to dramatically change the look of this whole section. So it lends itself more to a commercial use as stated in the land use plan. So that commercial overlay, so just reading that out of the land use plan, is potential for small scale commercial that is sensitive to the existing residential development if good transportation access is possible. So when we obviously look at our rezones, we always want to go to our recommendations and implementation policies in the land use plan. So the first one there is to encourage a balanced tax base while managing growth. So our first strategy is to utilize the future land use map and character areas when considering land use decisions and infrastructure improvement priorities. So encourage non-residential growth in the form of retail, restaurants, professional offices, and industrial development in areas designated on the future land use plan. As stated, this is a commercial overlay area. So our economic development policies and procedures, so to improve self-sufficiency and reduce retail leakage. So one of the big things in our land use plan is establishing Winterville as not just a neighboring community to Winterville, but a self-sufficient one, and not just a bedroom community. So support Winterville's transformation from a bedroom community to a neighboring community of Greenville. So that way, the Economic Development Task Force recommended that Winterville grow into its own vibrant community with its own commercial and employment sectors, and this would provide that opportunity. Also, discourage rezonings to residential zonings in high visibility corners with good access. Obviously, with the Old Tor widening project we're talking about, this does become a highly visible corner. I think it already is, but with that transformation and that improvement of the roadway, it's going to become even more visible with the signalized intersection and the access will be provided during that project as well. So we want to respond to recent and planned transportation improvements. Again, we're going back to the Old Tar widening project, so we don't want to be reactive on that. We want to be proactive. So anytime we know of a planned funded project by DOT, obviously we want to account for that in our planning. And that was one of the big things why we made this a commercial overlay area in the future land use plan. So with all that being said, staff's recommendation that is the general business district rezoning request is consistent with the intent and the purpose of the zoning ordinance, the future land use plan, and it is compatible with the future development and trends in the surrounding areas. So the Old Tar widening project and realignment of Vernon White with Tabard Road makes this a desirable location for commercial use. The stream feature between the subject properties and residential subdivision to the west will provide an added buffer. So planning staff finds the request is reasonable and in the public interest because the proposed zoning district is compatible with the surrounding land uses and the future land use plan. So staff does recommend approval of the request from the 13.9 acres from R15 to general business. I will add, so the applicant has given us a little bit additional assurances. So they want to amend the application and add restrictions to it, which will make it a conditional district, not unlike we've seen before. Those would include the restrictions of no gas stations or service stations or hotels or motels on this property. Going forward with the presentations, the rezoning process, Planning and Zoning Board recommended denial of this request on September 19th. That was a 6-2 vote. Public hearing was scheduled at the October 10th Town Council meeting. That public hearing was then tabled at the November 14th meeting, and then so we got to table it till tonight, so now council will hold a public hearing. And with that, I'll answer any questions of council. If not, we're ready for the public hearing.
Yes, Mr. Jones, I got one question.
Yes, sir.
Have DOT determined exactly how much of this property, of this 13.94 acres that they're going to?
I mean, it's a good little chunk. The owner or applicant could probably tell you a little bit more. They're the ones going through the right-of-way acquisition phase. All we see is the published maps. But I don't know what I don't know exactly what the total would be when you start looking at appraisals and offers and that thing. But I think it's in the general area of an acre or so. But I will let them confirm that as well.
Also, you said when you come out, I think you said Canterbury, you had to turn to the right with the upgrade.
Canterbury, you'll have the full signalized intersection with the realignment of Vernon White and
Cedar Ridge.
So Cedar Ridge's entrance, yeah, when you come out that entrance onto Old Tar, it'll be a straight right turn. You won't be able to go across it'll be a divided median with that protected left turn there, with a protected turn there. So it's going to be their super street configuration. So basically think about it as a big roundabout is what they're doing. So it's exactly what they're going to be doing on Arlington. It's exactly what they're doing on all their street improvements right now.
So down the street further would be something like a roundabout.
Yeah, you'll be able to go down and maneuver and take that kind of pull around. So I'm trying to think of the best example was like Reedy Branch and 11 right now.
Right,
so
yeah.
The Laurie Ellis Road extension.
Laurie Ellis Road extension, yeah,
Right.
yes.
The turnout, the wide turnout.
So you go down and then you
Yeah.
That's
the
right.
Wide turn.
Correct.
Any other questions? Well, Brian, isn't what you said earlier is consistent with what we said as far as what we looked at our land use plan, correct?
Correct, yes, sir. I will note that I gave you, so we did receive written comments from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people that you've got those written comments in front of you. I'll read their names for the record. If you want me to get into the entirety of their comments, I'd be happy to. But Mr. Dwayne Holder is in favor. I think Gabrielle DiMartino, they're opposed. Don and Bonnie Rogers opposed. Cindy Christian opposed. Steve Harrell is in favor. And John Stallings is opposed. But you guys have those full comments in front of you. Like I said, I'd be happy to get more in detail if you wish. So,
And this right here has been presented to the planning board,
Yes, sir.
and they didn't pass it, and for what
Recommended
reason?
Recommended denial. I think the overwhelming feedback we got from planning and zoning was the timing of the Old Tar widening project. There were other factors in it, but the overwhelming response was that, it was the Old Tar widening project, and the timing of it compared to whatever this property would turn into, so.
If not, then ready for the public hearing?
Yeah, and I'll note that Mr. Byron Angel with the Overton Group's in attendance. He'll typically would allow the applicant to make a small presentation, and the owners, Pastor Michael Bridges is in the audience as well, if you have any specific questions for them.
Okay. All right, we're getting ready to open up the public hearing, okay, for this matter with the rezoning request. I want you to listen carefully here. When you come up to the mic, please state your name and your address, okay? You will have exactly 3 minutes to speak, okay? And we're going to start out with all those that are opposed to this, okay? That is opposed to this rezoning request, opposed to this rezoning request. So if you like to speak, you can step to the mic, and you have 3 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, sorry for the interruption. I would ask that anybody that speaks per our town clerk's request, please put your name and address down on the pad, on the pad, and the pen's on this table right here. Thank you.
If you're opposed to this request, you can step to the mic. State your name.
My name is Marvin Arnold. Excuse me, I'm here with my wife, Linda. We live at 479 Vernon White Road, and we're opposed. We're opposed because there's going to be additional noise. Lighting is going to be light up the sky. And the traffic is one of the biggest things. And depending on what goes there, could affect crime in the area too. Actually, we'd like to see them put a park there. Be a great place for a park. Basically, that's all I have. I've been to 3 meetings. I've been opposed at all 3. This will be the 3rd meeting on the same thing. And I've stated every time that I'm opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Make sure you sign. Oh, he did? Okay, all right.
Stephen Nugent, 2319 Franklin Drive. Been a Winterville resident since 2014. I would like to say thank you to the mayor and the town council for having us. Also, I would like to say I can see where my tax dollars go. I appreciate the weekly pickups. I love living in Winterville, wouldn't live nowhere else. I'm glad the planning department decided to deny this, or from what I gather, they don't recommend this as a general business. I'm glad they put a stipulation with no gas stations, because we have plenty of those. I would like to see a no Dollar General stipulation, no self-storage stipulation, no mattress store stipulation. We have plenty of those. The 20-foot buffer looked nice on the backside. I'm worried about water runoff into the creek between Irish Creek neighborhood and Cedar Ridge. We all know that floods when it rains hard. 13 acres of concrete won't help that. So we have a plan for that and how that's going to get addressed. That would be nice. Maybe another buffer on the side of the road that matches the buffer along the waterway. That way, I personally don't have to look at whatever goes there. As that gentleman said, lights all night, extra foot traffic, noise. We finally got to a spot where our house is worth a lot, and the neighborhood is very nice, very stable. All of our housing values have gone up, which sure helped y'all's tax rate, according to my last escrow statement. We don't want to see that on the decline. You know what I mean? Y'all put the Jehovah Witness Church across the street, and that was a welcome addition. They keep the area nice. It is never loud. Traffic is not bad. I wouldn't be opposed to another church going in that lot. I'm sure there's plenty of churches that would like to have a nice space such as that. Wouldn't be opposed to a park as well. You don't have to have the playground and stuff like we got downtown, but a nice walking area, something we can enjoy as a family, things of that nature. But highly recommend that we go with the planning board's suggestion of waiting until the road gets widened to see exactly what we got. Then we can adjust it there, which I'm assuming to be what, 2026?
2025 is the schedule.
Yep. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Hey, make sure you sign up.
My name is Diane Venters Weddington. I live at 4713 Old Tar Road. My husband and I have been out there over 50 years, as well as other family members. We helped develop the first subdivision, Canterbury, with the idea that all of that land around there would remain residential. We have a problem now with the road being widened. We're not in favor of that at all. It's going to reduce our property values. It's going to make it unsafe for us getting in and out of our driveway with the proposed stoplights and turnarounds. And that whole area should remain residential. Like this young man said, a park would be nice so that people could take their children out there and take advantage of that. But not commercial, where we don't even know what they're proposing to put on that property. They haven't said what kind of business it's going to be, how many businesses are going to be there. Also, too, the DOT, I have the maps from all those meetings we went to, and a considerable amount of that property is going to be taken up with the widening of Old Tar Road and the Vernon White intersection. So I agree, we need to wait until we see what DOT does with the area, and then you can change the zoning ordinance to reflect if that property is still empty. There's also a graveyard on that property. What's going to happen to that? Are they going to move all those bodies and relocate them? Are they going to sequester it off so that it's respected for the families that have loved ones buried there? The logging company that went down there right beside the graveyard, we had no idea that was even going up there. We didn't know any meetings were being held, anything was going there. Traffic is bad in the early mornings and the late afternoons, and Vernon White's awful. If you're trying to turn out of Vernon White to go left or right, you put your life at risk because nobody obeys the white lines where you're supposed to stay behind. So we would prefer that it stay residential until after the DOT completes their project, if and when that happens, because there are a lot of people that are very opposed to giving their land for that project.
Thank you. Make sure you sign the.
My name is John Stallings. I live in 589 Cedar Ridge Drive. And like many of the ones I've already said, I really do think we need to wait for that road to be done, because the whole strip in front of our development is going to be lost. Already had, coming to the meeting tonight, I had a 5-minute wait to get out on the road. Traffic's so high. And then having businesses across the street is going to add to that. We don't need any more of that. We already have a strip mall half mile to north of the property. Have a strip mall half mile less side. We have both ways, north and south, half mile to a strip mall already, which they have fluctuated as to how many of their their offices or rooms or whatever you want to call it, actually have somebody in it. So there's a question about how much more of the small business type things we have in the area. And we, like somebody said, we don't need any super dollar stores and those kind of things over there. And gladly to see that they're not recommending the gas stations and service stations and all those other kind of things. But why not go on 11 and put some really nice stuff over there? It's not that much further away. There are a lot of good businesses that we don't have that would be better on a major route than that, like that. A full-size Home Depot, what are some of the rest of them? Home Goods, Super Target, Trader Joe's. A lot of those things need to come to this area, and that would be a good area to do it. Across on either side of 11, there's already some stuff, I don't know what they are building over there, but there's plenty of open space over there, and it's not residential. Has, in my opinion, a much better opportunity for businesses than our little place that's already too crowded. So I hope you look at this with the people that are here and having a community to not help destroy that with already a volume of traffic and plenty of businesses around. So.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Carl Albert.
Pull that down. Pull that down.
My name's Carl Albert. I live at 649 Merchant Drive, and I'm opposed to the rezoning for all the reasons that were already stated beforehand. But I also wanted to say something that kind of shocked me when, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but a gentleman came up and said, you know, part of the plan is to make it so Winterville is not a bedroom community anymore. That's why I moved to Winterville, because it's a bedroom community. I don't want to be Greenville. I mean, we can drive 10 minutes and we're in Greenville if we want to be Greenville. We don't want to be, I think the majority of the people who live in Winterville are really happy with being a bedroom community. But I know, you know, this is geared towards this rezoning, but I think it speaks to the larger picture of the direction that you want to take this town. And that's why I'm opposed to that. We don't need a commercial business right there, right in the middle of a lot of residential developments. The impact would be huge on them, water runoff. You know, already Old Tar Road, when it rains heavily, is, you know, almost impassable sometimes. So to put a hard surface on 13 more acres over there, where's the water going to go? So I think to keep the same communities that we have now and how this residential area is and keep it in that manner, I'm opposed to that. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak?
Hello, my name is Marcia Pender. I reside at 488 Channel Drive in the Devonshire subdivision. I frequently drive down Vernon White out of my subdivision, so that's why I'm really concerned about the traffic and the noise and the walking that I often do with my children and with my dogs. And personally, again, I'd like to reiterate what the man said, is that we moved to Winterville for that reason. We don't want to be Greenville. Like, that's the point. We love the quaintness of Winterville and what it offers as a small town. This isn't an older person type of perspective. I'm a young mother of children, and that's the perspective of my particular family as well, is that we prefer to live in a smaller community with multiple generations within that community. And we would like to keep it that way. I don't prefer any commercialism there, and to be quite transparent, I don't even want to wait on the DOT thing. I think that they should just table that and just say no. Like, we don't need to wait to see the road expansion. I think that we would be perfectly fine just not doing this at all, personally. But I concur everything that has been said that's opposed to this, between the lights, I love to stargaze with my children as much as I can, with it not being a grifting kind of dark, but Winterville does have some. And I appreciate what Winterville does have to offer. Winterville knows, and its citizens, we know exactly who we are, and we like who we are. And so I oppose this and would like to not see this done at all.
Anyone else?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Desiree Dupree, and I reside at 643 Milton Drive in Briar Creek. So what that means is I am situated right behind Old Tar Road. Now, for me, we cannot do anything about the DOT changes. That's already etched in stone. So the noise traffic that I already experience, for instance, I can stand on my porch and hear every car that goes by. So DOT is bringing that noise closer to me. Even with the creek in between, it's still going to be louder. What I would like to not subject myself to is the light pollution that's going to come with the commercial property that they would like to put there. So if we can just not do that at all and put that off, that would be great. I am a almost 30-year nurse, and I work at the hospital, so I am subjected to a lot of noise and a lot of light pollution. I moved to Winterville to get away from that. I like the quiet neighborhood. I didn't move to Greenville for that reason. So I'm okay with being a bedroom city, if that's what you call it. I really would not like to be forced to sell my house and move to another bedroom city because I like the small town feel. I like that. I don't want to be subjected to any kind of crime that it's going to bring in my neighborhood, if we have any say-so about that. So thank you very much for hearing me out.
Thank you.
I'm Doug Boyd. I live at 556 Milton Drive. My home is right across the stream or creek or ditch from where this commercial development would be if it takes place. That's one of the reasons my family moved from Pecosing Road area to this property, because it was almost like a rural piece of property in the middle of a little town. I greatly prefer having a farm in my backyard to having a shopping center. I could almost bear to have a shopping center in my backyard if it would be locally owned and unique businesses, but I just feel like it would be another, Wall Street owned grocery store and yet another coffee shop and some other bagel shop or something that we've already got a huge number of chains of those already around. And I don't really feel like we need any more in regard to the Food Line Shopping Center down the street that is kind of run down, could be redeveloped. We've got the other one up at the other end of Old Tar that is run down. It can be redeveloped. There's plenty of property in Winterville that can be developed without turning some good farmland that's helping to feed our nation and our people and our livestock, rather than have yet another generic strip mall. Thank you.
Make sure you sign the, anyone else that would like to speak against this property rezoning request? Anyone else?
Hello, everybody. My name is Tarico Griffin. I reside at 528 Stillwater Drive. So my house would be directly, I guess, in front of the proposal that we're speaking of tonight. Like many of the other residents in Winterville, we moved from Greenville. We actually still own a property in Greenville that's, heavily commercialized and around a lot of businesses and whatnot. And a part of the reason why we chose Cedar Ridge as our neighborhood is because of how quiet it was. Even though, we still get the road noise and whatnot, we are really concerned about the light pollution as well. We're concerned about the extra road noise that we're going to get from the already expanding road traffic that's going to be coming. And then we're also scared for our children that like to play in the backyard, and we feel like that's going to be taken away from them because, again, there's no telling what's going to be back there. We're just, we just would like to not see that happen. We agree with everybody else, a park or something for the community will be a little bit better for us, if there has to be something there. And if not, we appreciate the farmland as it is right now. My daughter loves it. She likes to look out there and see the grass growing, the different crops, and the different things that just happen, throughout the seasons and whatnot. So, we really appreciate if you would consider not approving this. Thank you very much.
Anyone else that's not in favor? Anyone else that's not in favor? Going once, going twice. Anyone else that's not in favor? Okay, with that being said, now we want to see who's in favor of having this property rezoned. Anyone that's in favor of having this property rezoned can now step to the podium. State your name and your address, please.
Good evening. My name is Siobhan Brumsey. I reside at 2873 Oakwood Drive, and I have a twin sister that lives in a property adjacent to this zone, so I am on Old Tar quite a bit. I am for the rezoning of this area. My husband and I own Riverside Recreation, Uptown Greenville. And so as business owners, we're looking for different areas to expand our businesses to. This particular piece of land, I personally am interested in as a business owner. It feels like a really natural extension of the businesses that are already on Old Tar. You have businesses to the north and to the south, as others have already commented, and so I really see this as a natural progression for growth in Winterville. As a Winterville resident, I would like to have a business in the city that I live in, and not have to take my businesses to Greenville. I really share a lot of the feelings that you all have expressed in terms of concern for the traffic reasons, for the noise. I like stargazing as well. I think there's an opportunity here to partner with the ownership, because my understanding of it is that they're listening to our feedback. And I don't know many owners of land that would take public opinion of their property and do anything with it. So we have an incredible opportunity to provide feedback, let our voices be heard. This is what we don't want here. This is what we would be for. And let's explore the opportunity of having homegrown businesses here. Like I said, I would love to have a business in Winterville. I find myself 2 businesses in Greenville. So I would like to not have to drive 25 minutes and be able to have a yoga studio that we can walk to that looks like a home
You got
in this
20 seconds.
community. Thank you. So for those reasons, I am for the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Make sure you sign.
Oh, yes.
Sign.
Good evening, everyone. I am Felicia Bridgers. I live at 637 Edenbrook Drive. When I moved forward to purchase a home in Winterville in 2015, I wanted to live in Winterville because I assumed that Winterville was progressive and an opportunity for a millennial like myself to kind of have the nice medium between city and the outskirts of Farmville that I was used to. I would like to say that concessions have been made in regards to how the property would be used in the planning stages of things, and I know the owners very well, and I know that they have gone above and beyond to speak with individuals in the community as well as councilmen, et cetera, and they have been proud proponents of developing Pitt County, Winterville, and actually the whole entire state of North Carolina. And I know that all voices have been heard on this evening, and moving forward as a proponent of it, moving to general business would be a great asset to the town of Winterville. Thank you.
Thank Make sure you sign. Anyone else that would like to speak for this?
Good evening. My name is Erica Nobles. I'm at 110 East 5 Tower Road. I'm here, I understand all the concerns, but I'm here from a small business point of view. I do have a small business here in Winterville, and I've also been affected by the new 6-lane construction that's coming in on the road. I've been a small business owner in Winterville now for 7 years, and I really love Winterville, and I appreciate Winterville a lot far as the small business aspect, not for a franchise type thing, but something for a small business, yes. Winterville is a growing area. I have found out demographically a lot of new people are moving in this area, and it's a booming area. I understand the concerns, like I said, of the widening of the 6-lane road, because I'm affected by it also because of my small business. But that small area, I think, will be a good asset for a small business in Winterville, because it is the last, it will be the last property in Winterville before you get into Greenville. Thank you.
Thank you. Make sure you sign. Anyone else that would like to speak in favor? Anyone else?
My name is Jesse Chadwick. I stay at 322 Barrel Drive, and I would like to also take note of the fact that there are some concerns about the property, and I believe that it should be something that we should think about in terms of going forward. But in addition to that, change happens. We see it already preparing to happen in terms of DOT making changes. But I ask you to think about in terms of the change, can that change be something positive for our community? Such as if they look at changing the road, which is going to happen, will that also provide opportunity to use this property, one, to bring more jobs to our community? It doesn't necessarily have to be a big box store or a Family Dollar or whatever. Could it be something in terms that the folks can use in terms of general services within our community that are useful? Also, let's think about services. As we look at Winterville, I noticed there are 2 breweries in this community. 10 years ago, they did not exist. They exist today. The reason why they exist today is because there was space and there was an opportunity for these businesses to come to Greenville to establish their brand and expand their brand. This property can also be used for that as well, to give the citizens of Winterville and the surrounding areas perhaps come and bring some jobs to Greenville so they can expand their whatever business they may have to provide more jobs for our citizens. Thirdly, it could provide some additional revenue. We have the Watermelon Festival, we have the movie in the parks, we have the concert in the parks. These things cost money. They're not being given to us free. By utilizing this property could be an opportunity for us to bring more eyes into the property, more money into the property, that money can stay in Winterville and use it to benefit and bring more amenities and more jobs for our community, which we all love and enjoy. So I want to thank you for your time and thank you in consideration for change for this this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Make sure you sign. Anyone else that would like to speak in favor?
Good evening. My name is Byron Ains. I'm with the Overton Group. We've been working with the owners of the property for a few months now to help them with some of the logistics of what this property could look like. We are, in addition to full commercial real estate firm, we also participate in development throughout the state. And we look at properties like this quite often, and this property, for all the reasons that Mr. Jones has already stated, is something that we would look at as attractive and something that could bring amenities to the neighboring residents and be additive to the quality of life that citizens of Winterville already enjoy. I'll just make a few comments about the concerns about the stormwater in particular. As developers, there are requirements in place that would require any impervious structures or pavements, that there's retention ponds and requirements that would alleviate any overrun concerns with stormwater. And the same thing with light pollution as well. There are regulations in place that any development would have to adhere to direct light away from residential neighboring properties. So I understand the concerns. I think this is a opportunity for positive growth for the town of Winterville and a way that the town can benefit from increased tax base. And I appreciate the consideration. And we did take into a lot of feedback that was provided during our due diligence period, and feel like with the conditional districts that we've proposed, that we are trying to meet the concerns where they're at and still bring some growth to the town of Winterville. So I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak in favor?
Good evening. My name is Michael Bridgers. I live at 2023 Dovegate Lane, Greenville, NC. My wife and I purchased this property August 2003. And in 2009, we came before the council and asked for rezoning. Doug Vaughn zoned this property, and it was at R 12.5. We came back 2 weeks later and asked for the same zoning, and we were told no, that it needed to be rezoned at R15, and so we did. In 2016, we came before the council, and we asked for rezoning, changed O and I. That did not transpire. The gentleman who bought some of the property from us to start his tree business was allowed to develop his property. Since that time, the church has been built, Blackstone subdivision is there. Things have been building up all around us. Unfortunately, we have not, we weren't able to do that. So in 2018, we were glad to hear that the town of Winterville decided to upgrade its a comprehensive land use plan. And in studying this plan, we learned that our property was a perfect fit for what they recommended. And then we called Mr. Jones and we talked to him, and he said, you can complete an application. And we also contacted Overton because we wanted some help with job development, land development. They were the experts. So we contacted them and we were talking to them. And we completed an application asking that the land be rezoned from R15 to General Business District. We made concessions in talking to Overton about what would be some of the better things to do, and that is we agreed not to build a service station nor a hotel. I'm certain there'll be other things that people ask you to do. Some have said, we don't like the noise or the light. Growth is inevitable. It's going to happen, whether we're ready for it or not. Winterville, Greenville, Farmville is growing. We grew from 9,000 to, and it's projected it's going to be 11,000 in a couple of years. So since we know that this area is going to continue to grow, and since it's been recommended by the experts,
Got about
planning
20
department,
seconds.
the planning department said this is a good thing for Winterville. So we look at commercial overlay. And so we applied and we believe it's the best thing for city of Winterville and would be a good thing for town council.
Thank you, Mr. Bridges. Anyone else would like to speak in favor? Anyone else? Going once, going twice. Public hearing is now closed. Brian?
Yep. At this time, I'll answer any questions.
Okay. couple things, Brian, that I took down here. There was concern about the traffic, and as far as traffic, DOT has determined that this road needed to be because of traffic, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a DOT-initiated project, and that's based on their traffic impact studies. So, so their analysis determined that roadway needed to be widened, and those are for a myriad of reasons, one being, traffic safety concerns. So I think the safe movements of that super street configuration is what they've seen works, and the numbers do support it. So, I mean, I think that's a really big key in why they want to make those improvements.
Okay. The second thing is lighting concern. Don't we have measures already in our zoning as far as lighting for any?
Absolutely. So our zoning ordinance does take care of lighting requirements. So any outdoor lighting, I'd have to go look at specific language, but it can't directly affect the neighboring properties. But yes, our zoning ordinance does take in consideration for it. And that also would go between land use classifications from commercial to residential, buffer size, meaning buffer width, meaning what's in that buffer, vegetation, fence, but it's going to be an opaque buffer period. So.
Right, and that was my next thing is the buffer, as far as if they, if it's rezoned, what type of buffer will be in place? And,
yeah, so, and that's based off land use classification, like I just said, but the point of the buffer is to be a year-round opaque visual buffer, so you would have a stark visual buffer between the residential and the commercial property.
Okay, all right.
I ask a few questions.
Any question?
Brian, does the DOT change their minds very often? At last meeting, we were told nothing going on in Winterville as far as roads. The next day, they showed up. The next day, this comment. When I moved there in 1989, they said 2002, it'll be 5-lane. I sit on that board as an alternate member to the mayor. They change their minds all the time. The most dangerous intersection in Pitt County is Vernon White, Mill, Davenport. They don't even want to listen to us, period. It's most dangerous. They do nothing. Is that true?
I'll go with your comments. We're working on that intersection for sure.
Now, they said it's been pushed back to what year improvements have been made on any roads?
So what's the question?
Building, what year? Money into what year?
So you're asking about this specific project?
No, overall, it's been this project, any building project.
I'm not exactly sure what the answer is.
2025.
That would be this, so this project's already in acquisition phase, so these projects take time, obviously, it's not something that does overnight, so that, part of that is gonna be acquisition, which is already started. Construction, physical construction is the 2025 date, per their project website.
And also too, Mr. Moore, we just come from the TRC and the
TAC, MPO TAC meeting.
Last week. And they talked about this project. They talked about several more projects. And so this project is already let.
Was anything said about our most dangerous intersection?
No, because I didn't bring that intersection up. That's don't have anything to do with this project. And we would talk about that at another time. But we was trying to make sure getting this project right here, the Old Tar project. That's a separate project, separate thing going on, and we will discuss that later on. But at this point, we are talking about this project, so let's stay on this project. All right. Any more questions?
Well, we can stipulate the degree of lighting.
So the zoning ordinance stipulates the parameters there. So we'll handle that during our site plan review period. So they'll give a lighting schematic. So typically that'll show a halo around everything, showing the effect on the neighboring properties, and we'll make sure it's in the technical specs of the zoning ordinance for sure. Yes, sir.
What were the reasons that the planning board did not approve?
So I think I alluded to it in my presentation, but I think the overwhelming kind of sentiment was the timing of the Old Tar widening project. So not knowing exactly what it's going to look like, I mean, obviously you can show people lines on maps all day long, but you know, you just don't really realize the effect that it's going to have on the property. So that was probably the primary reason everybody wanted to kind of put this on the back burner until such time. I would argue that, you know, in the planning world, we like to be proactive, not reactive. So we already know this is a funded project. We already know it's going to happen per DOT. It aligns with our plan, so that's why staff would recommend approval of it. So.
Any more comments from the staff, from the board? If not, what is the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion that we deny the request.
I'll second.
Okay. Got a motion made to deny. Any discussion? A motion to deny made by Councilman Moore, second by Councilman Johnny Moore. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
This is the second time tonight that our council has approved something and then went back on it. You know, we approved the comprehensive land use plan. Lots of time, lots of meetings were put into that. And the idea of it was to plan for our community in the future and to plan for the needs of our community, and also to be able to put things in place in our community that our citizens ask for. Our citizens are constantly asking for more opportunities to buy the things that they need, whether it's a grocery store, and we all know that. We all know everybody wants a sit-down restaurant that's open during the day. These are kinds of things that our citizens want. Some of these things are small businesses, as referred to by some of the people that spoke. So I just cannot see us going back on this request. This land has been bought before us. All these, I think, I didn't count all the times, all these different times as far as use of that land. It can be an asset to our community, and I do believe it will be. So I really think that our board should consider approving this request. Don't let Mr. Bridges have to come before us again and modify. He's worked with the citizens to try to come to a compromise on the use of his own land. And that shows a lot to me as to his devotion to our community. And I would like to see us approve it. But, of course, we have to vote, and we will vote in a way that shows that we would like for our community to continue its growth.
Any more?
I would like to comment. First off, I always tell people, I listen to the voters. I listen to the citizens who are affected. The majority have spoken tonight. As an elected official, I had no choice but to listen to what you say. It's where you live, you raise your families. I'm elected to represent you. I've been a member of this community since 1989. I worked for this town of Winterville starting in 1973. As your garbage collector, your utility person, sewer person, building inspector, you name it. I did it. I always do what the citizens want. That's why I made the motion. Always listen. We have a planning board. They think too. Why appoint them if not listen? Not going to listen to them.
Well, since you said that, I wasn't going to comment, but take in consideration that a lot of times, per se, that we don't go with what the planning board recommend. That's why the planning board has their planning board and it's referred to this board. Because a lot of times the planning board see things different than what we see. We're looking at overall growth and everything else. And we see something different than the planning board sees. So, you know, that's the checks and balances. And that's why we do have boards. So, you know, I've seen several times you voted against that the planning board approved. So, you know, and we all got to listen to the citizens. I got to listen to 10,400 citizens. And I'm not taking nothing from anybody here, but this town votes on 10,400 people. And that's what we take in consideration. Nobody wants anything in their yard. I stay on 4 Lines Road, across from the high school. I hear traffic, I hear noise all the time. You know, I mean, it's a given. Change is inevitable, right? But at the same time, we want progress. You know, we all want to raise our kids in a small community, but at the same time, we want to keep our taxes low. We want to keep our tax base down, you know. So in order to keep your tax base down, we got to have mom and pop businesses that will love to come in our town. You wouldn't realize how many calls we probably get from people that want to come into our town. So you want to open up a business that we don't have. Yeah, we want amenities, but you got to pay for amenities. I mean, that's just the way things work, you know. But we are here to listen, and we are here to govern. But when we approve a comprehensive land use plan, that's what we are saying to the citizens. We're going to give you things. You're asking for parks. Parks, that's what comes with this. Growth comes your parks and your amenities. Those are the things that come with growth. So we have a vote, we have a motion on the floor. Now it's time to vote. All vote against it, raise their right hand, please.
Against, now the motion is to deny, right?
Deny, right, Deny.
Against. To deny. The motion is to deny.
Deny the rezoning request, to deny.
So you're asking for votes in favor of the
No,
denial, against the denial?
Against the deny.
Yes, that's what I thought. You
Right.
said against the denial.
Yes, hold on, let me back up.
Yeah, let's get it straight.
Let's get it straight, let's get it straight. If you don't want this rezoning request, that's what I'm asking.
The motion, Mayor, as I understood it, was made to deny the request.
Right, yeah, right.
So
Deny.
then you're asking for those that are in favor of that motion to deny the request to raise their right hand. That, okay?
Yeah, that's correct, right, All right. So we've got two, all right? All in,
Against the motion.
all oppose the motion, raise their right hand.
The tie, so you got to vote again. You too.
2-2. So that next come down to me, right?
Correct. You, Mayor breaks the tie.
All right. Well, I'm going with Ms. Robinson and Paul. That's my vote.
So then the motion fails.
Motion failed.
Okay?
Right.
Then, Mayor, I'm probably, you're getting, I'm sure to say this, but I think you need to ask for another motion.
Right. Now, that's what I was going to make sure.
I make a motion to approve the rezoning request for the property. Those numbers. I don't know the numbers, don't have them in front of me, but we have the numbers, I know, in our records.
For partial 672246870790 and 70655. Those are the partial numbers. Do I have a second? Have a motion and a second. Motion made by Councilwoman Robinson, second by Councilman Paul Rice, to rezone these three partials. Any discussion? With no discussions, we're all in favor of this motion. Vote by raising your right hand. Raise your hand. Okay. All right, all opposed? 2-2. I vote in favor of rezoning this property.
I'm sorry, I don't listen, Dave. You don't listen? Can I say something?
Could you please exit the area quietly, please? Okay, next up is the consent agenda. I'm sorry, public comment. So there's no public comment? There's no public comment.
Right.
Right,
Wanted to make sure we didn't skip it.
right. And now the consent agenda.
Motion approved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Moore, second by Councilwoman Robinson to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. All right, Terry says approval of the 2023 calendar.
That was under
Oh,
consent.
I'm
So
sorry.
Under old
Old
business.
business, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm
No,
sorry.
you're good.
All right. Ain Street Sidewalk Extension Contract, Anthony, I'm sorry.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Come back before you tonight. This next item on the agenda is for the award of contract to Tripp Brothers Incorporated for the Ain Street Sidewalk Improvement Project. As we talked about in previous meetings, the project will install sidewalks on the property, A.G. Cox School property adjacent to the softball field. It kind of grew on us a little bit, and we expanded it, trying to make sure we satisfied NCDOT as it's adjacent to a NCDOT street. And so we'll have handicap ramps as well added to the project. So the project will run from Primrose, Barrel, and Windmill on the east side of Main Street, and from Blunt and Division on the west side of Main Street. Bids were solicited from 8 local contractors, with only 1 responding. Tripp Brothers Inc. of Ayden was the only bidder. We are recommending the town award the contract to Tripp Brothers Incorporated, as they are a responsible bidder. They've done work for the town in the past. They've done a good job. The bid amount was $131,840.75.
Got a motion?
Second.
And a second. Got a motion made by Councilman Smith, sorry about that, Councilman Smith. Channeling you out there in the audience. I saw your name down here. By Councilman Moore, second by Councilwoman Robertson.
Getting tired.
I'm tired. Any discussions?
Yes, that's the same company that is doing the development out there on the,
11 in Main,
yes,
they're doing the site work for that project.
they're doing that site work. And you did say that they have done work for us before?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Like, what was their
They've
latest
done,
project?
they've done paving projects, as well as, they're currently doing the bore project under the railroad
Okay,
for our sewer line bore.
all right. Y'all feel good
All
about it?
right.
I feel good about it.
And again, we solicited from 8, Will with the Wooten Company solicited from 8 contractors. And it's just a sign of the times. It's not a great big project to the contractors. It's fairly small, so it's not as attractive.
No one else, no one else responded?
No, sir.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor. Okay,
All right.
all in favor?
Oh, excuse me, sir.
Huh? Oh,
I'm sorry.
oh, okay.
All right. And you said that we didn't get no other response, is that correct?
Just the one response.
Okay. Did we,
It was advertised, yes, sir.
did we resubmit it?
No, we didn't do it twice because it's not required to because of the dollar threshold. It's
Yes,
not a
sir.
formal bid.
Okay.
But we did kind of use formal bid procedures just to try to include others. But we did not, because of time, we felt like trying to get this project done before softball season starts and before spring ball starts, that these improvements need to be done. And so time was of the essence as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry, Mayor. You okay?
I'm fine. It's time to vote. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I'm fine.
Thank you.
Downtown parking, project update?
Yes, sir. Mayor, members of the council, this is a quick update. We were, if you'll recall, we talked a couple months ago about the ongoing downtown parking project, and that a lot of it was contingent upon DOT's work on the roads. And we thought that was coming in the spring, and then we got a good surprise that they came early and have been working. So we are getting that project back up and trying to work a little faster on it. But my update tonight is that staff is working on it, and we'll have a better update for you next month.
Okay. And that working comes from your mayor's working hard, working DOT hard.
We appreciate everyone's efforts on that endeavor. And Councilman Moore, I just want you to know that that also includes the traffic pattern of the church behind Town Hall.
All right, thank you, Terry. Approval for County Commissioner Mark Smith to fulfill his term at CMSD as a board member.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Motion made by Councilman Moore, second by Councilwoman Robinson. Any discussion?
Yes, I got one question. When does that term actually end?
Believe it ends in 24, I think. That's correct. Both Commissioner Smith and I were reappointed in August of 2020, and I think they're 4-year terms, so yes, 24. Yes. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah. Any more discussion? Good. Any more? If not, it's time to vote. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Smith, you still on the board?
Get off.
All right. All right, new business. Councilman endorsement of Shepherd Memorial or Shepherd Library proposed regarding the Shepherd Library Board composition.
That was quite a mouthful.
It was.
I know, I worded it, it was very wordy. However, thanks to the hard work of Councilwoman Robertson being on the library board, the director, Greg Needham, will be going before the county commissioners and the Greenville City Council requesting that the library board as in whole, and Ms. Robertson, correct me if I'm wrong, add 2 members, permanent members to the board, one from Winterville and one from Bethel. Mr. Needham would like council endorsement to move forward with that. We certainly anticipate that you all would be willing to do that. I believe the town of Bethel voted to endorse last week.
They did.
At their regular meeting.
Make
So
a
we're-
motion for
Yes.
endorsement.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Councilman Moore, Councilman Moore, and second by Councilwoman Robertson.
One correction, they're not adding to.
Is there just taking
It
current
would just be 2 of their
of the
board
sitting
members.
members?
Board seats would always be
Be
reserved, one for Bethel and one for Winterville.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
All right. Any more discussion?
That's nice.
If not, it's time to vote. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Mayor, folks, we will make sure that we inform Mr. Needham of such.
Okay. All right. Tony,
Okay. For years, we let the gas company have a real deal on our land. Very cheap. How cheap was it, Anthony?
$175 a month.
No, the first agreement was $100 a year.
$100 a year.
$100 a year. And I brought this to the board.
this way.
Now we get $175 a month. So I'd like to move that up to at least $200 a month.
Okay, got a motion on the floor by Councilman Moore, second by Councilman Rice.
I do
Any
have-
discussion?
Yeah, I do have a
Okay.
question, effective when?
Effective date.
February 1st.
February 1st.
And my question is, when was the last increase? That last one?
A
Back
long
in
time
when?
ago.
2009.
2009.
That took effect January 1st, 2009.
2009. Got that? Okay.
It was a 10-year term.
Okay. So it's still going to be a 10-year term
We would assume so,
Yeah.
yes.
For $200 a month.
for 200, okay.
Yes.
All right. All right. With that being said, All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carry. All right. Items for future agenda and work sessions. Anybody have anything at this present time?
I think we need to have a special meeting, all the money we have in the bank, $12 million extra, to beautify our town, do something to our parks. Maybe do away with the idea of them giving us money, land in a neighborhood versus a piece of property.
Did you want to try to do that at the vision setting meeting or have a separate workshop for that?
Well,
I think it would be good at being a vision setting meeting.
when is vision setting?
We haven't set it yet, but we will set it next month, usually either later
Right.
part of January or early February.
But we don't need 118% at the backs of the citizens after we went from 40% on the electric bill. We need to give them a break.
Now, keep in mind, you do have a general fund contribution in this current
Right.
year's budget.
Okay.
When will we hear about that program? Green Lamp?
I think staff's finishing up, working on the specifics, and as soon as everything's nailed down, they'll be in touch with, who to contact, how that's going to work and all of that. I know that finance under Anthony have been working directly with them, trying to nail down all those details. Give you a quick update if that's all right, Mayor. If Anthony-
Basically, working through with Green Lamp and looked at opportunities and things that they had done in other areas. And the funding we received $25,000 from Carolina Power Partners, which is the entity we contract with for our energy. So we're going to take that, it's set in a separate fund, and the funds will be distributed on a first come, first served basis, and limited to $25 per month at $85 per transaction. So it's based on need. It's 200% of the poverty level, so it should reach some people more than the ones that normally get assistance from DSS and other entities. So that's the intent. We'll certainly get more out about that, but the funds have been received from Carolina Power Partners. We've got the green light from Green Lamp. Didn't mean to go there, but so yes, as soon as we get confirmation from their supervisor who's in charge of it, we've already worked with the gentleman whose boots are on the ground here in Pitt County, and he's waiting for to go ahead from his boss to start processing applications. So we are starting to tell customers about it already.
And don't we need to have something really in place before, spring break in April, when we usually have the kids to come out, students to help us out to rebuild?
We're talking about
Energy assistance.
Utility assistance.
Oh, utility, okay, I'm thinking about
You're thinking about housing.
the housing,
right,
yes. My mind got on housing, I'm sorry.
Well, I understand. And we'll be
Yes.
talking about that in the near
If
future.
possible, and if they're ready, I'd like to see them present at our next town meeting, town board meeting.
What's that?
Because of the fact
Utility.
that, it is recorded, the meetings are recorded on YouTube. I found that a lot of people are going back on YouTube, watching the meeting. They can tell me where my head was and everything. So, but they are watching our meetings on YouTube. And of course, we all would be on the same page with it.
We'll certainly extend the invitation.
I appreciate
All
it.
right, thank you, Anthony.
No problem.
Well, I just want to ask a question then about Green Lamp. Did we ask Green Lamp to assist us and help us with the minimum repair for homes?
Green Lamp.
I think Green Lamp and Cornell.
I don't think Green Lamp does urgent repair.
No, I was talking about they want to help to assist in the managing of it, that's all.
We're talking to Koinonia and Rebuilding Together.
Rebuild it together,
Okay.
right.
They're the two groups.
Those are the two groups, right.
Okay. Have we got any feedback from them yet?
We haven't met yet, but we'll be working on trying to get that together.
Okay, and I think that's what my question was, because, the spring is fast and approaching.
Correct.
And usually, that's when we have the opportunity to have these small repairment done.
Correct. And we have very few applications currently, but we'll be trying to meet with the two entities, see see where we are, see where they are with volunteers, and report back to the board.
And so hopefully we'll have it ready to go by the spring, hopefully.
We're hoping to re-energize it, yes, in terms of how many will be helping and what exactly will be done. That's to be determined.
Okay, all right. So y'all will meet with them.
Yes.
All right, great.
All right, thank
And
you.
also, do we need a meeting for the application? That's the other thing, to fill this vacancy that we was talking about earlier tonight. I know that the application is supposed to come in on the deadline, but what's the deadline on it?
January 5th.
January 5th by 5 o'clock.
You all
Okay.
meet on the 9th.
And we meet on the 9th. You got 4 days. So what do we have in place?
The process is going to be, Mr. Moore, is that application to come in to our town clerk, Mr. Harvey. Mr. Harvey would disseminate them to us.
Each one of us, each applicant? to
Each
us.
application will be disseminated to our email address, okay? You will have the applications where you can review them.
The letter.
The letters, I'm sorry, the letters. Letters.
And we basing the applications on what? On what standards? That's right, you said, what standards did you request?
We didn't set no standards.
I think there was a request that was made that seemed to be filled by a special request, wasn't it, tonight?
No.
The motion was made and,
I mean, you made a request, Mayor.
My request was,
Someone that has the same as,
no, that wasn't my request. That was not in the motion.
okay,
That was not in the motion.
okay,
I was just speaking, that was not in the motion.
okay. So what are we looking for in the application?
you're looking for letters of interest, and it's up to the applicant
Applicants
to,
to tell us the reason why they want to serve.
just like you did last time in
Right.
2017.
It wasn't no request made by me. Only thing they're doing is they're sending in their request why they would like to serve on the board.
Okay.
Mhm.
I just want to make sure.
Right. Yeah, appreciate that, because, yeah, no misunderstanding, I didn't say that. It's not tied to the motion. I may have said that, but it's not tied to the motion. It was not part of the motion, okay? Correct?
You couldn't have made the motion.
Right, so, right.
Mayor, comment going back a little bit to, we talked about a vision setting. In the budget, we have tentatively set
Oh, thank you, Don. When is that?
January the 23rd at 6 PM is when
That was on the
vision setting.
calendars, and Councilman Moore, can we incorporate the things okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Thanks, Don.
I was glad I had.
I'm glad you did too.
Okay,
And I'll be sending out all the calendars to each of you. Now that you have approved them, I will strike draft from them. And I'll also include the holiday calendar, which follows the state calendar, so that everybody will have a copy in front of you.
Will you give me a paper copy in my box?
Yeah.
I'm just old-fashioned today.
Okay. All right.
So do I.
Did you get your?
If I happen not to, just let me know if I forget.
Okay, all right. All right. Okay, all right. Now the announcements, Don.
Okay, now I got the mic down here. Okay, because of the holidays, Human Relations Board is scheduled to meet Thursday. I do hope that we'll have interest and can get a quorum here that night. They meet in the executive conference room. Shop with a Cop is this Saturday, December the 17th. Next Monday, the Planning and Zoning Board meeting, which is December 19th, meet at 7 p.m. here in the Assembly Room. Board of Adjustment is scheduled for Tuesday, December 20th. At this time, however, there's nothing to come before them, so that would be canceled unless something changes. The Christmas holidays this year are Friday, December 23rd, Monday, December 26th, and Tuesday, December 27th, and town offices will be closed. New Year's holiday then, and as per your all's approval, is Monday, January the 2nd. The Pitt County is doing a legislative meeting. I'm going to drop the word breakfast out of there because it does not include any food. So it is on Friday, January the 6th, and it is from 8 to 9 a.m. at the Eastern Area Health Education Center at 2600 West Arlington Boulevard. And there's no need for a reservation, and there is no cost. I would suggest to get there early because I think it's going to be a limited number of people that can get in. Your next regular meeting is on Monday, January 9th at 7 p.m. And one additional from what you have is City Vision has been scheduled, and it is now on April 25th through the 27th, and it is at the Embassy Suites, Charlotte, Concord Golf Resort and Spa. So I've already secured rooms, and then if I have to drop some, I will, but we'll be getting more information to you as time comes on, but that just has hit. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Don, for the reports. Next up, we will have comments from our town attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no report tonight. I just wish everybody Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to start on this end. Mr. Moy.
Only thing I would like to say, that I want to thank the staff for the decoration that they have all over town. The lighting is beautiful. The parade that we had last Saturday, I think that's one of the biggest crowd that we have had in many years. Good turnout, good fun, good family time. And also, I just like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and may God continue to bless you.
Mr. Rice. All right. Ms. Robertson.
I'm always got to talk. Anyway, I do support, thank you for the support of the library proposal. And we had a wonderful Christmas celebration this weekend, all those things. Our Human Relations Board talked about the activities, cops on the road, and we were able to participate with our raffle, our adult raffle. And I just hope everybody just enjoy yourself, have a wonderful Christmas. We'll all be back here in January.
Mr. Moore.
I'll be brief. Remember the reason for the season. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Parker.
Thank you, Mayor. Don, I do think we left off one closing. We don't have up here the offices being closed for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, do we? Did I miss that?
No.
Since we won't be together before then, I mean,
16th.
is it 16th?
Uh-huh.
Yes. So the offices will be closed on January 16th as well, just letting everybody know.
We meet on the 9th.
Oh, we
January
do?
9th. Yeah.
It's not until the 16th?
Right,
That's
16th.
You got me all confused.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never mind.
So we meet on the 16th.
No, we meet on the 9th.
9th.
His birthday is closing is on the 16th.
Clearly, it's been a long day.
Right.
Thank you for keeping me. Just want to say Merry Christmas to everybody. Yes, we'll make sure it's on there. I'm done.
Are you done?
I am done.
Well, also too, I like to say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Hopefully everybody will partake and have a festive time with their families. And also too, tonight, I think we saw our town in the process of what government is all about. You know, we got to remember, as you say, you want your voice heard. You can make it be heard by coming to our meetings You can make it be heard by going to the polls, you know. But at the same time, you got to understand, if you want things, you know, you got to understand there will be change. And sometimes change is not always good, but after it gets here, you forget all about what happened, you know. So, you know, peace, love, and happiness. Can I get a motion?
I second.
I got a motion by Councilman Moore, second by Councilwoman Rice. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye. Robertson.
Robertson.
You know what he meant. You know what he meant.
Yes.
You tired? You tired? Huh? Okay, you do too. Give me a call, We got to do a meeting, Rick, we ain't cuss each other out.